If we need a 5 ohm resistance and we have an 8 ohm resistor already, what do we need to use for the second resistor? Let's think about what we know about resistors. The only way to decrease the resistance is to add a resistor in parallel, and here's the equation for that. 1 divided by the total resistance equals 1 divided by the resistance of one resistor plus 1 divided by the resistance of another resistor. This equation can actually be expanded to include as many resistors in parallel as we want. So if we have a third, it's just plus 1 over the resistance of the third resistor, and so on. Back to the original equation. In this case, since we need 5 ohm resistance, that 5 ohm resistance is our R. So R equals 5 ohms, and the resistor that we have is 8 ohms. What we don't know is the resistance of this second resistor here. Plugging that into the formula, we get 1 over 5 equals 1 over 8 plus 1 over R2. To solve this, the first thing we want to do is work to isolate this R2. So I'm going to subtract 1/8 on both sides. When subtracting 1/8 on both sides, or to subtract fractions, we need to get a common denominator. So I'm going to multiply this first fraction by a form of 1, 8 over 8, and the second fraction also by a form of 1, 5 over 5. What I mean by a form of 1 is if we took that fraction, like 5 over 5, and simplified it, we'd get 1. This means we're not changing the actual value of the equation, we're just changing what it looks like. Multiplying those together, we get 8/40 minus 5/40 equals 1 over R2. Performing the subtraction, we get 3/40 equals 1 over R2. And now we want to solve that equation. Or we can solve rational equations by clearing fractions. So I could just multiply both sides of this equation by both of those denominators, 40R2. What this essentially does is it essentially just is the same as cross multiplying. So when we have a proportion, we can solve it by cross multiplication. Either way, we end up with 3R2 equals 40. So thinking about this with cross multiplication, 3 times R2 equals 1 times 40. To solve for R2, simply divide both sides by 3, and we have our answer. The second resistor should be 40/3 ohms, or if you wanted to write it as a decimal, apparently I forgot my units, it's 13.3 repeating ohms. Thank you.